I bet that you came across one of those videos promoting to reading, saying things like readers are leaders, or the more you read, the more you succeed. Others are saying things like you should read a book every month, or no, you should read a book every week, or how a typical CEO reads about 52 books a year and that's why you're not successful. And others are promoting the videos like how you can read 100 or 200 books a year. And I'm here to tell you that all of these messages are incorrect and they are adding stress to your life. So, in this video, we're going to talk about the first argument, which is why these messages are incorrect and what to do about them. And in the next one, we're going to talk about why these messages are adding stress to your life and how to fix it. So make sure to subscribe to benefit from this tool as well as the other tools we talk about in this channel. So before we dive into the first argument, which is why these messages are incorrect, let me ask you this question first. Why do you read? Do you read to have more information? Or do you read to feel joy? Or do you read for self-development? So we're going to reflect back on this question throughout the video, and in the end, I'm going to give you two rules that depending on the answer to this question, you're going to choose the relevant rule to use and apply so you can benefit from reading the right way. Right. So personally, I wasn't a good reader myself. I wasn't even close to being an average reader. The only books I cared to read about or to read and care about was only those related to my medical journey. So those the books that I had to read to graduate from college, and then afterwards the books I had to read to acquire my master's degree in occupational medicine. Other than that, it didn't feel right to me to add any other books to the equation, even though if they were about self-development, even if they were audiobooks or ebooks, those other lighter versions, other than the physical books. But it seemed, or it stayed a book to me. It stayed a book. So regardless of the format. And 3 years ago, this thing stopped. The floodgates opened, and it started with the GTD audiobook. Actually, it wasn't even the audiobook itself. It was a 2-day seminar recorded by David Allen himself in one of the companies. It's a huge resource you should use for that. I believe it's in the Getting Things Done website. I'm going to leave the link for it in the description below. But anyway, I listened to that seminar and it changed my life. It taught me how to control and organize my life in a way that I couldn't think possible. It also taught me that thing we always listen and hear about, which is you can do anything. It taught me the same idea, but from a different perspective. It didn't go into a motivation perspective, rather than teaching me how to do anything I want if only I prioritized and organized things here and there. So now I'm a YouTuber, plus being a full-time occupational physician in one of the largest companies. I'm always there for my family every night in my work days and every day in my weekends. I do things on a weekly basis, things that interest me, activities that I was dreaming to do for a long time. So all of this integration in my life was not possible before learning GTD. So I got a little bit curious, so I decided to listen to an audio book other than that. So I went to the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the classical one, and it had the same impact. So I went to another book, which was The Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck. It had the same impact. So I went on for another book, which is Start With Why. And thinking about these 4 books and thinking about these videos and messages we hear about reading is leading, it seemed to me that is actually correct. If reading 4 books, just 4 books, have transformed my life that much, then imagine reading 10 or 20 or even 52 like those CEOs read. So, long story short, I went on a mission. I speeded up my reading. So I was reading or actually listening to an audiobook every week throughout my commute to work. So 3 months ago, my wife and I were going out with another couple, and the husband works as a Tai Chi trainer. At one point, he mentioned that he advised his wife to stop reading. She was stressed, and one of the remedies he advised her is to stop reading to minimize that stress. So it felt awkward to me. So I had to ask him, why did you do that? I think reading is helping. So his response was another question, which is, how frequent do you read? I responded, confidently that 4 or 5 books a month. So he asked another question, smiling, why do you read 4 or 5 books a month? I said, it's simple. Reading is leading. I tested it myself. The more I read, the more I know, and the better I become. So he asked me another question, which is, so just knowing is going to make you better? And I stopped for this question for a long time. Later, he told me it was just 2 minutes that I was silent in, but it felt longer to me. I reflected back on my reading journey in the past 3 years, and I discovered that the books that actually transformed my life were those who I applied the content first before moving to the next book. So, remembering back the GTD audiobook, I didn't listen to that seminar, to that 8 hours long seminar once or twice. I listened to that seminar 3 times. And in the third time, I decided to apply the content. So I was listening to like a chapter or a point. I was understanding it and then trying to applying it. So apply the strategy, look for the tools mentioned, start using the tools. And when I feel that this part is under cruise control, I move to the next chapter, not before. So I did this, and I think it took me around 4 or 5 months to have the GTD complete process in under cruise control before moving to the next book, which was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that book, along with the Start With Why, those books I listened to twice. And in the second time for the 7 Habits, I focused on the first 3 ones. So I was trying to apply those habits. So being proactive, I came up with a list that I want to be proactive in. And those included being a YouTuber, being a coach. Then I moved to the next habit, which is planning. So I planned how to be a YouTuber, how to be a coach. And then the third habit, which is putting these actions first in my life. The other book, which is the Start With Why, I had the same experience. What is my why, which is empowering you to upgrade your life? What is my how? By sharing experience and supporting you. What is my what? Is being a coach, a YouTuber, a physician, and hopefully in the future being a writer. So same with growth mindset. Even though I listened to that book once, but I spent some time questioning myself whether or not I have the growth or the fixed mindset in my education, having the same quiz in my business. Do I have a growth mindset when it comes to business and parenting and so on and so forth? And then I discovered that the books, and by the way, those 4 books took me around 14 months to complete. So if we did an average, duration, the one book took me around 3.5 months, on average, right? Not 1 week. So when I compared those to the other books which I read on a weekly basis, right? Those books I enjoyed a lot. I had many information from them, but they didn't transform or have that huge impact, the same huge impact that those 4 books did. And then I also remembered that along the way of reading, 1 book a week, I came across that book about parenting, which is how to talk to kids so they will listen, and listen so they will talk. And it was a very interesting book, a very full, full of information book. So it didn't feel right to me to go to the next book, even though I finished it in a week. It felt the right way, or the right decision for me was to listen to it twice. And again, I applied the content. So I think that book alone took me like 3 weeks or so to listen to it twice. And in the second time, I was applying like a week or a few days in each chapter, And I'm confident that this book is what took my parenting to the next level. So just reading without applying can be informative, can be full of joy, can be full of motivation, if you like, but it is not transforming. Just reading is not transforming alone. And if you reflected back on my story, this is what actually happened with me. The 5 books that took my life to the next level were those who I applied the content first before moving to the next one, and not just finishing them on a weekly basis. And if you're not convinced yet, let me introduce you to another tool I give my coaching clients, which is the ladder tool. What is the ladder tool? This is the tool that you use if you want to learn anything that can or that you want to have an impact in your life. So let's say you want to learn about productivity tool. So you use this ladder tool, which is, basically a ladder. So you go upstairs, or you go up through stages till you reach the final destination, right? And we use the ladder because it's active rather than the elevator, right? For those who are asking. But anyway, so this is the purpose, is to master any tool to have an impact in your life, and it is formed of 4 stages. You start from the first stage, which is not being aware. So right now you're not being aware of 1 or 2 tools that could significantly improve your life, right? And the way you know them is by reading, seeing, or hearing about them, right? So when you do that, you go to the next stage, which is being aware but not knowing. Now you are aware of why productivity is important in your life, but you don't know how it works, what tools to use, where to get them from. So you keep reading or seeing or hearing someone talks about it, and you move to that next stage, which is knowing but not applying. Now you know how productivity works, what kind of tools to use or choose, and how to use them, and how to set them right, like we did in the productivity tools course in this channel. So now you know, but without applying, you don't move to the next stage, which is applying. And usually it starts with applying with incompetence, because you're just there, you're just testing yourself, you're just practicing, learning. And then with more practice and more applying, you reach the apply with competence level. So if you reflect back on those messages, readers are leaders, or the more you read, the more you succeed, you'll find out that just reading can take you up to the 3rd stage, knowing but not applying. Trust me, you will not move to the 4th stage. Even if you read 100 books about the subject, you'll still be knowing but not applying. And when you're not applying, you don't know whether or not you have whether or not you have enough information, or the right information, or maybe you have enough information and you have the right information, but the problem is within you. There is something that you need to apply and practice, like public speaking. You can learn anything, you can learn everything about public speaking, but without practicing it, without practicing how to deliver a presentation effectively, so to use your voice, your tonality, your pitch, your pace, these can only be applied and tested, and not just heard about or seen, right? So just reading will take you to the 3rd stage and not the 4th. And I don't believe that successful people are just reading. And when you think about this message about just a typical CEO reads about 52 books a year, I always respond that yes, but those CEOs already applied the books that took them to where they are today. Those already applied the things and the information and the strategies that made them CEOs in the first place. Now, CEOs read about 52 books a year, maybe for more information, or maybe to feel joy or motivation, or to keep updated about certain things. But they already applied the books and the strategies that made them CEOs. So you can't compare yourself to them unless you apply the strategies first. And when you think about it, about the messages of readers are leaders, or the more you read, the more you succeed, from a psychological perspective, which is kind of my area, look at this one. Read to lead. This is the message, right? Or read to succeed. When you hear this message, you're creating a mental conditioning in your mind between just reading and just leading. So when you read, your mind goes off like, okay, so reading is done. That's finished. Let's lead or succeed. And this is not how it works. Not really. Just reading isn't going to make you a leader or a successful person. You have to apply the content first. That's why I have a problem with using the word read. Read to lead is simply like the F rule or F grammar we learned about in high school, right? We said, if you study, you will succeed. That's it. If you read, you will lead, right? And when you think about that example we used back in school, you'll laugh about it. We used, if you study, you will succeed. We didn't say, if you read, you will succeed. Because back then we know the right approach to study, that you need to study, not read, to study to succeed. Because studying implies that you hear about things, see it done, read about it more, and test it or do it or apply it before succeeding, or before going through the examination. So when did it change to become read to lead? I don't know. I think maybe because it rhymes, maybe, but I have a solution for this. The first thing is to remove or stop using the word read to lead. Use another words. My recommendation is to use the compound words, which is learn or study or even do or apply, because doing and applying, those verbs, you can't do what you don't know, right? Or you can't do public speaking without knowing first about public speaking. So when you use do or apply or learn or study, your mind doesn't go off like, okay, so that's finished, because your mind can't identify when studying is finished. So if you read even 20 books about the subject, your mind will go, okay, so is it enough? Now you answer, I don't know, maybe. I think I have to see it done, or I have to hear more about this, or I have to read more about this. And when you do that, your mind is going to ask you, well, I'm not sure. Are we finished yet, or what? And then your answer could be, or should be, okay, so I have heard enough. I have, read enough. I have seen enough. Now I think I can try it myself first. And even if you did that, your mind wouldn't identify that as finished. It will keep asking you, is it enough? Is it enough? You will be the decider. You'll be the owner of this decision. When is it finished? And normally you won't stop until you reach that applying with competence first, until you reach the applying with competence level or stage. And even if you reach that far, you'll always learn, you'll always practice, to fine tune your tool. And that's it. That's the loop you want to keep yourself into. So my recommendation that in the future, replace the message with one that better suits your mind or serve your mind. So you can use the appropriate sequence, which is read to know to do to succeed, or lead. Or if you're a fan of shorter sentences, so do to succeed, or learn to succeed, or apply to succeed, use one of the compound words we talked about. And personally, I use apply to fly because it has the same criteria. Apply means you should read or hear or see, and basically you should know first, and then you should apply. And it's one of those compound words I talked about. Plus, apply to fly, it rhymes. So if you're a fan of the rhyming sentences, so you can use apply to fly. So back to the question I said in the beginning, which is, why do you read? Is it for joy, information, or self-development? If you're reading to feel joy or have more information, then remember this rule. More is more. The more you read, the more joy you'll feel and the more information you'll have. But if you're reading for self-development purposes, then less is more. The less you read, the more you'll give yourself time to apply and the more you'll develop yourself. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel where we will discuss any tool that you can use and apply to upgrade your life. See you next week, and until we meet, keep applying, keep achieving, and keep upgrading.